everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Ad Age Publishers Panel. I am Heidi Baldusky. I am the Associate Publisher for Ad Age. Today, we are continuing our conversation with Twitter, and we're going to be talking about reach and relevance, the new video landscape. Now more than ever, brands need to connect with people in a meaningful, authentic way. But the content of today is no longer delivered in traditional ways, and brands have increasingly shorter windows to make a big impact, especially on social. In today's conversation, we're going to learn how video-focused media efforts have shifted and what consumer behavior is telling us when it comes to video consumption. We're also going to be discussing how the opportunities for brands to build connection and relevance are taking new shape, and how brands can build successful strategies on powerful platforms like Twitter. For today's conversation, I'm being joined by Doug Broadman, Director of U.S. Agency and Platform Solutions for Twitter, Haley Diamond, EVP of Digital Investments and Partnerships for Publicis Media, and Jake Marks, the Senior Director, Enterprise Partnerships, Omnicom Media Group. Doug, Haley, and Jake, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
It's going to be a good conversation. So, Doug, I want to start with you because we have set the new video landscape. Can you give us and help really set the stage? What are we seeing right now in terms of how audiences are consuming video on social?
Sure. I mean, for us, as is the case for many, the last 6 months has been a very interesting time, and usage on Twitter is way up as people seek out information, moments of entertainment, moments to get together. We grew considerably in Q2, about 34% our MDAU, and why that's really interesting is that now more than ever, we've seen the increase in terms of engagement come on the video side. People are coming together to watch at-home concerts, to engage in sporting events, to connect with their communities and their cultures more than ever before, and perhaps most importantly, to stay informed. And a recent example of that for us has been with the return of live sports, and namely the NFL. Our first week of the NFL earlier this month, we had a 34% increase in video viewership compared to week one just a year ago, which is a very, very significant spike for us in a multi-year partnership with the NFL. And if you look across the marketplace and what's happening, you see it. There's so much programming in the sports ecosystem right now. In the traditional sense, there's going to be a challenge when it comes to viewership and delivery and ratings and all these things. It's because people are coming into these alternative platforms like Twitter to get the information they want and the entertainment they want, when they want it, and how they want it in these quick, more informative sessions. So we don't really tend to think about video content on its own or in a vacuum. We think about it as a part of the holistic conversation that takes place around these key moments and events in people's lives. And it's always through the lens of complementing that experience from the end user's perspective.
That's interesting. So less about I'm serving up these specific things that I need you to watch, and more really thinking, how can I complement the overall experience of what the consumers are passionate about? And that's great. So how are these trends different? Haley, I want to go to you. So Doug is talking about how we're really trying to complement an experience. What are you seeing in terms of how trends are taking shape, and maybe what you're seeing that's different in the past?
Sure. So I think social distancing, of course, being in place for the last many months. So people are looking for ways to feel connected, and they're actually turning to these digital experiences as the opportunity. Lots more content sharing, higher numbers of engagement with that particular content. And then we know just naturally that time spent is also increasing. So moving from, I think it was 76 minutes last year to 82 minutes with social network time spent on a regular daily basis.
People are really consuming. And Jake, how about you? What are the kinds of things that you're trying to share with your clients? I mean, obviously, you guys do a lot of work with Twitter. You're bringing all these great solutions to the table. What have you been able to get your partners and clients excited about in terms of opportunities in this space?
Yeah, so I mean, first and foremost, I agree with everything that both Haley and Doug had mentioned, but I keep bringing it back to this whole notion, and I kind of made it up on my own, but we've sort of gotten to this end of the Netflix binge type thing. I mean, we're still binging a lot, and we do have the time for it, but it's really about content discovery. It's sharing of content, and it's really finding what else is out there that the consumer can be entertained with. But even for where Doug was going with some of his comments, it's following the consumer journey. We're trying to find a delicate balance and not overexpose a user, but also make sure that we're in the right place at the right time with the right type of creative.
So what are we seeing in terms of content sharing? If we're talking about creating video that really is complementing a consumer's experience, is that really with the intent of like, I want their eyes and their eyes only on this content, or is it really meant to be a shared experience? What are you guys seeing?
I think it's certainly meant to be a shared experience. I mean, we tend to look at things through the lens of conversation organically on Twitter. And if you look at things like gaming and movies and music and TV, those all have significant year-on-year growth metrics in terms of the level of conversation that's taking place. And if you kind of drill into how that reflects itself through the lens of product for us, we've launched a few new products this year, such as topics and lists, where we're able to more cultivate the experience of our users based off of interests, and they can share those lists with their groups that are connected to them, their communities, and the people they want to keep informed or they know have kind of like-minded interests. So we expanded the number of topics that people can follow up to 4,000 this year, over 4,000. And the number of accounts that are following topics has actually reached over 50 million. It will reach over 50 million by the end of the second quarter.
Wow, 4,000. That's a lot. That's a lot to follow. Now, why do you think that is? Do you think people are just is it a hunger for the information, or is it a broadening of interests, or a little bit of both? What do you think is driving that?
I mean, I'd love to hear from Jake and Haley. I personally think it makes it easier to follow, right? One of the biggest pieces of feedback on Twitter is being able to customize your experience. There's so much information on the platform. There's so much to follow. If you can hone in on the things that you want to hear about, that you want to be educated on, that you want to stay informed in, that's a huge bonus for our users. So it just makes it so much easier to participate in the conversation, find that content, and enable that discovery mechanism that is so critical to us as a leading platform.
For sure. I would say, humans are social creatures by nature, right? I think we're yearning for those social interactions. And so a lot of this content sharing that we referenced at the beginning is coming through. We're seeing those numbers, the double-digit engagements, additional brand shares to really forge those connections overall when something is interesting, when something is topical, and when something feels like is helping to foster that connection with a friend.
Right. So, Jake, there is obviously a lot of opportunity here. So, can you just help parcel that out a little bit more? Where, as you're looking at it, and you're thinking about it. Obviously, as we're seeing these shifts, and again, it's about reach and it's about relevance. The name of today's conversations. What other opportunities are you seeing as it relates to that?
Just staying, in the know and being culturally relevant. I know that's been, a big topic of conversation or a theme with Twitter in general. But it's also, staying aligned with a clean platform and making sure that, for a user and, allowing them to create their own experience or to create their own journey, so to speak. But, taking a step back, I think, what we're really trying to do out of Omnicom is just best understand the consumer journey and understand, what are the different ways that, these users or our intended targets are consuming media and following them accordingly, but doing it in a brand safe and a relevant way.
Right. I mean, it's following the data, following that journey, and building something really special and unique to them. Doug, going back to you, when you are partnering with brands or even agencies like Omnicom Media and Publicis, how are you helping people adjust their current strategies or even create new ones altogether? Obviously, the landscape is rich. There's a lot of fertile ground here. Where are you sort of starting with people, or how are you coming in to help them shape what they might already be doing?
Sure. I think one of the interesting things is we've been discussing this through, I guess, the focus of the user. We also sit in a unique position where we partner with many of the same content companies that both Haley and Jake do every single day for their clients. So if you look across broadcast partners, official leagues, entertainment entities, these are many partners of ours as well. And they're also rethinking their own strategies in light of the way that the world currently is. So take the NFL as an example. We have no fans in the stadiums, of course. We are looking at ways to engage and entertain fans on Twitter, and brands that are represented are looking at ways to connect with those fans. So this year we actually launched something called the Showtime Cam, which is we put a Twitter mirror in the end zone of NFL stadiums, and teams score a touchdown. They come in to the end zone and they do their favorite or choreographed touchdown celebration. We stream that and we create a polling experience for our fans to vote on their favorite celebration of the weekend. It's something that's never existed before because we've never found ourselves in this position before, but it's really getting creative with our content partners on finding those new moments to entertain fans and also connect brands to those experiences.
So it sounds like that kind of goes back to that idea of, cultural relevance too, as we're looking about sports and that hunger for content. I want to go back to you, Jake. Let's talk about cultural relevance again for a moment then, because as we're talking about the NFL and as we're talking about sports, when we're thinking about the role of cultural relevance, how are you educating your brands and your clients to really think about what that means for their content and for their placement? What questions are you having them ask themselves?
Sure. I mean, it's really asking them, how are we going to start to redefine what, is once was a traditional term, but the new prime time. And it's really working hand in hand with all of our content partners, as well as our distribution partners and platforms such as a Twitter, on where that's going to happen and how is that going to go down, and how can a brand really, lock arms with these guys and take the ride and the experience together. It's a collaborative effort. I mean, we've been having some great conversations in almost a three-way pattern with both partners, clients, as well as internal agency stakeholders.
So I want to do a thing. I want to have you guys all look into a crystal ball here for a little bit, and I want to start thinking about 2021. Haley, I'm going to start with you. What do you think are going to be the biggest opportunities in the coming months? We're talking a lot about the NFL and sports now. Are there other certain tentpoles that I should be thinking about as a brand?
Sure. Thanks. I would say there are two key pieces to bring it together. The social commerce absolutely will continue to grow. So seeing the numbers that we have seen quarter on quarter in terms of growth in consumers in the US who have bought a product directly through a social media channel, absolutely. Almost regardless of the platform, we're seeing that growth. And then just with regards to the cultural relevancy, if I may, I think that it will be important because as brands step into what the future comes, whether that be leaning into AI, the growth of 5G, et cetera, taking a look at their own brand values and the brand ethos, that's really important to them. So the Publicis Media Cultural Quotient team actually helps our clients with a risk assessment of sort of turning inwards and saying, who are we in this time period from a cultural perspective? And how do those questions about my core values actually help guide what it is that I will do in the coming quarters, 6 months, year, et cetera?
Haley hit one of the components spot on. I think advancements in product and how consumers are engaging with brands, getting the products they need, the products they want. I think that's a huge opportunity moving into next year. I think if I look at our own platform, I think our user growth that we've seen this year opens up an opportunity for us to continue to innovate on the ways that we serve the public conversation and deliver the most tailored and dynamic experiences to our users that enables brands to more deeply connect with culture. And that's going to be something that you hear from us throughout the course of this year and moving into 2021. And lastly, my hope is that I think one element of what we've all been going through over the last 6 months is it's caused many of us in our industry to relook at the way things have traditionally been done, right? Right now in today's age and the way that we're all kind of virtually situated, Twitter is such a huge component of the way that you surround the moments that matter most to your brands and to ultimately your consumers. And my hope is that kind of sticks and we don't get too far removed from that. So how we continue to enhance that experience with our content partners, with our agency partners is a huge priority for us.
Oh yeah, agreed. I'm a fan of Haley's response as well. And just to add on to that, no doubt Omnicom has a very healthy stable of clients representing a lot of different industries and categories. So by no means are we going to, scale back on what we're doing from big activations and temples. But it's also, we're living in a new world right now. And so we need to figure out what new things can we start to create with our clients and with content partners to start to bring new value either to new consumers or to existing consumers where we want to, really deepen those relationships and build the brand from the ground up. So I think it's unwritten right now, obviously, but there's gonna be a lot of new things on the horizon that I think we're gonna all want to sink our teeth into.
I know. I think this is going to be a really interesting time for the industry. We are known for iterating fast, but obviously it's coming even faster. And I think watching the developments that are going to take place is going to be fascinating. So Doug, Haley, Jake, thank you so much for being part of the Ad Age Publishers panel today. I really appreciate your contributions. And thanks everyone for tuning in and joining the conversation.